Veronica says, woo, face cam plus slime model. It is face cam plus slime model. It is. But we have a topic to talk about today, and that is that Biden is not doing super well in the polls right now. And there's a few reasons for this. We'll get into our theories on why, but we'll look at this first. But I've got some theories as to why, a fairly large one recently. But it says here, President Joe Biden's poll numbers keep getting worse. November started with New York Times showing Trump ahead in 4 of the 6 swing states, but more indicators of Biden's electoral peril soon followed. The president standing head-to-head matchups with Trump is falling. Amongst the latest surveys this month from 13 separate pollsters, Biden's position is worse than their previous polls in all but 2 of them. Now, if we're just talking about before we talk about that, or talking about those polls, there is one thing you can point to, and it's a major thing. Think about how many people voted for Biden last election cycle who would have voted for Trump if he was not an insane piece of shit. Just think about how many people were like that. Probably a few, right? Probably a few. So I say that because if you remember the fervor of the last election cycle, there were a lot of people who originally were not going to vote, but felt compelled to vote because they wanted Trump out of office, and people who would have normally voted Republican, but felt compelled to vote Trump out of office. They wanted to get him out because he had done so much in such a short amount of time. He had fumbled the ball on the COVID pandemic. He fumbled the ball with BLM. He fumbled the ball on so many things, and people were realizing, oh, this guy's a fascist. This guy's bad. This guy doesn't need to be in power anymore. So there were a lot of people who didn't vote for Biden, but they were voting against Trump because he was the incumbent. Now we have had our brunch time, basically. There are people who are not going to have that same fervor. Remember, the last election cycle, over 80 million people voted on both sides. Those are record numbers. It was like, what, 86 million for Biden, 84 million for Trump? Something like that? Like, those are not the numbers that you see generally in an election cycle. You generally see much smaller numbers. The reason you saw such big turnout is people wanted Trump gone. They wanted Trump to leave. Making sure that Trump left became top priority for a lot of people, both Democrat and Republican. This is why Georgia swung blue. Georgia doesn't swing blue. We're not a swing state, but it happened anyway, right? The reason for this, one of the reasons, is it didn't matter what Biden was. It didn't matter who he was. He could have been a thing of flaccid jello. It would have been better than the alternative. But now we have had the flaccid jello for 4 years. And despite the fact that Biden has done some pretty decent things, we can't get over the fact that people have been now 4 years removed from the Trump presidency. And there are other people in that race with Trump as well. There's Nikki Haley, there's Ron DeSantis. Because there's other people in that race, there are people who are not really showing the same fervor at the polls right now for Biden. A lot of those people who were not motivated to vote at all, they're not looking at Biden right now. They're trying to figure out, hey, how can we get something better? How can we get someone different? Not because they think they need to use all of their energy to get a monster out of the office, but because they're tired of the person we have. The Republicans have done a really good job of painting Biden as an inept, senile old fool, ignoring the fact that Trump is just as inept and senile. As a result, it's less that people are against Biden and more that people weren't really for Biden to begin with. So trying to sell people Biden again, doesn't work very well. You have to give people a reason to do that. Now, he's done better on trans issues. He's done better on gender issues, which has been a good thing. But you also have to remember that trans people are not a majority of the voting base. But there is one thing he's fumbled the ball on a little bit that everybody has opinions on too. The war between the IDF and Hamas. That's something he has given opinions on that a lot of people are not super thrilled about, specifically saying that he will support Israel and everything that they do. And a lot of people go, oh, you're supporting Israel, that means supporting the IDF, versus, you know, how supporting Hamas, a lot of people see as supporting Palestine. That's why there's been so much argument over what the, you know, from the river to the sea statement means. There was even a person in Congress who brought forth a proposal to make it a banned phrase, because apparently in his mind, it was a phrase that is always associated with genocide, even though there are plenty of instances of Palestinians who do not want to see Jews wiped off the planet, who are also using that phrase because they want to not be, you know, constrained in a ghetto in the Gaza Strip. So, I bring up all this because the political climate right now is very much Biden's dropping the ball on a thing. Let's not vote for Biden. The political climate of 4 years ago was Trump is dropping the ball on everything and he's a fascist, get him the fuck out. Which is why we saw record turnout numbers on both sides. But, continuing the article, while polls suggest that most of the movement comes from voters abandoning Biden, who might become undecided but not swing to support Trump. I haven't read the article, but that's basically what I just said. Like, literally, people who would not have been voting at all to begin with were energized to vote for Biden because they wanted Trump out. Those people are now no longer energized to vote at all, if not for Biden. But Trump's vote share in the national polling average is higher now than at any point in the past year. The state-level data is just as striking. In addition to those New York Times Siena polls within the last week and a half, other surveys have shown Trump ahead by 8 points in Arizona and 5 points in Michigan. Biden's recent slide and his political predicament some 11 months before Election Day represent a confluence of slippage with reliable Democratic constituents, like young voters, and the outbreak of the war in the Middle East, which we mentioned just a little bit ago, and the rise of independent and third-party candidates who could siphon votes from both Biden and Trump. God, I hate to say this every single election cycle, but I will say it again this election cycle. A vote for a third party is a wasted vote in America. I hate that that is true, but it is a 100% true statement. A vote for a third party is symbolic at best. I understand those of you who would rather Green Party candidates in. I would rather Green Party candidates in over the Democrats. I really, really would. But unfortunately, I have to live in reality, and I have to live in the reality where my vote has weight, and that weight affects real people here in the States. If enough votes get siphoned to third party that would have or could have gone to the Democrat incumbent, you have a higher likelihood of getting the Republican in office. I know that there are people who are going to be like, no, votes for third party, they could have gone either way, it doesn't matter. No. That's not how voting works. In a vacuum, right? In a vacuum, when you have voting, it should be that, oh, when everybody votes, there should be an even split around things because there's a diverse amount of ideas in the United States. That's not how it works. The more people who vote in the United States, the higher the likelihood we have of getting Democratic people in, people on the Democrat side. They, like, liberalism is the politics of the United States. So liberalism is the thing that is almost always going to be pushed for in the States. By and large, it is what people associate with more. Your conservative people, like, literally, unironically, die. They die out. They are the harder voter base to replace. So the easier thing to do is for incumbent Republican candidates to make it harder for people en masse to vote. Getting rid of mail-in voting, trying to make it to where there's fewer polling locations, tripping up polling locations, changing polling locations for people. I've had my polling location change before, and it felt really, really weird to be like, this is the place I went to literally a few months ago, but I guess this election cycle, it's a little different. Those are the types of things that Republicans do because they know that by sheer numbers, when people turn out to the polls, fewer people vote for them. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's how reality works. Which means that we know for a fact that we do not live in a reality where votes are just if, maybe, either ors when they go to third parties. Your votes that went to the Libertarian Party were probably votes going to the Conservative Party if they were going anywhere else. Your votes to the Green Party were probably going to the Democrats if they were going anywhere else. I would like us to have ranked choice voting, because that would allow us to be in a situation where you can vote for the Green Party and then have it spill into a Democrat. If it fails, you would see more votes for Green Party candidates if you did that. We don't live in that reality. Also, fun fact, another reason why it is impossible right now for a Green or a Libertarian to actually win the presidential election, oftentimes they don't show up on the ballot. I shit you not, when I went to vote in 2020, when I went to vote, I don't remember if it was 2020. Brain is fried. I had the choice between Trump, Biden, or JoJo. I did not have the Green Party candidate up there. That was not an option that I had. Not every state even gives you the option for every third-party vote. So, again, your third-party votes only matter in a symbolic way, or if you are so desperate to get that, 6%? They have to get 6% of the vote in order to get a certain amount of funding for the next year? Something like that. It doesn't actually change much. It really doesn't. We do not have a voting system that allows for it to change much. CGB Grey did a very good video on this a long time ago, and I highly suggest you guys look at it. Anyway. Biden is losing young voters, but it's unclear how many. This week's NBC News poll has a stunning result. Trump led Biden among voters younger than 35, 46 to 42%. Even though that was well within the high margin of error for such a small subgroup, other polls show a close race with what has been a reliable Democratic constituency. Biden has only single-digit leads among voters 18 to 34 in the polls this month from Morning Consult. He's got 2+ there. Fox News has Biden at +7. Quinnipiac University has Biden +9. Trump led in Biden in all 4 polls among voters. Only a few polls show Biden with a lead among young voters that approaches his 2020 margins, but they are exceptions, not the rule. That's prompted a debate over whether Trump is really making the deep inroads with younger voters the polling suggests, or if those numbers are an artifact of some kind of polling bias. One popular theory speculates that liberal younger voters who are unenthusiastic about Biden and his party over his administration's support of Israel for its war with Hamas are not participating in the polls right now, even if many of them will vote for him in next November. But Biden, the oldest president in history, has never polled well with younger voters, and telephone polls, one of the 4 mentioned above, all but Morning Consult, were conducted over the phone, a very difficult way to reach younger voters. Yeah, most people, my age group or younger, we see a phone call, we toss the phone. We don't care. We're just like, oh yeah, cool. You called me on the phone. Anyway, back to playing video games. Like, that's just what we do when we see a phone call. I get a phone call from family, probably not answering it. I get a phone call from friends, probably not answering it. I get a phone call from a business. By this time, my phone thinks almost everything is spam. 9 times out of 10, it thinks everything is spam. It used to not be that way. I used to answer phone calls more often. And that was mainly because, 1, phone calls were the primary way that most people communicated. 2, let's be honest, there was a time where your cell phone was the safe haven away from spam callers. And that was back when landlines were more popular. Everybody had a landline, and then some people individually might have had cell phones. Once cell phones became the primary way that everybody had a phone, as opposed to that cell phone being the place that I would love to talk to people on, it became the place that was the default, and therefore all the spam callers went there. I just, no. I just do not answer. Just do not answer the phone. You can text me. You can message me on Discord. There's lots of ways to get in contact with me. Calling me usually means I have to stop what I'm doing and devote my time to you. Most of the time, no matter who you are, I don't want to devote my time to you. I want to split my time between you and something else that I am currently enjoying. Typically. Smiling GM says, I only answer if I'm expecting the call to begin with. Hey, fair. Fair, fair, fair. Give me a second. So, what are your views on doomerism, with the term being defined as in the cases the idea that the world is permanently fucked with no chance of getting better? I think it is a useless philosophy that needs to be discarded by everybody. I think doomerism is stupid. I think the minute you have accepted in your brain that everything is fucked and there's nothing that can change it, then you should probably log off of the internet, lie in bed, and never move again. Why would you? Everything's fucked. Why would you even try to survive? Moreover, if you have that type of mentality, leave my audience. Leave, because my entire purpose of having this channel is trying to use rhetoric to change people's minds or to create a safe place for people who feel like they don't have one elsewhere. Both of those ideas are completely antithetical to the idea of doomerism. Why would you seek a safe place if everything's already fucked? And why would you try to change people's minds if everything's already fucked? Things are not all fucked. If they were all fucked, we wouldn't have the ability to change them. Everybody gets, and I'll get to the Biden thing here again in a second, but everybody has this fantasy in their mind of going back in time and changing one thing and it having a profound impact on the world around them and changing the future forever. And everybody has that fantasy, that one thing they would change. And yet none of these motherfuckers have the same thought about what's happening right now. Every single thing you do right now has the same kind of massive butterflying effect. Every person who you help out on the street, every person who you say hello to on the street, every person that you pat on the back for doing a good job, every single instance of that happening has a positive effect on somebody's lives and can be carried forward elsewhere and can have a butterfly effect that makes things better for people going forward damn near in perpetuity. When you've accepted doomerism, then you've accepted the state that nothing will change. Everything's fucked. So why would you try to change it at all? Why would you do anything there? I think that adds a layer of nihilistic stupidity onto operating. I don't like that. Just like people who, since we're talking about the Biden voting thing, there are people who think they shouldn't vote because they think that their vote doesn't matter. If their vote didn't matter, then politicians wouldn't be spending millions of dollars campaigning. Just saying. If you don't think your vote matters, then why are politicians trying to buy your vote? Why are they doing this if it doesn't matter? Jackie says, I don't think it's as simple as that. I agree doomerism isn't helpful, but I think that it largely stems from depression, which is at a record high. Okay, cool. It has a source that is internal as opposed to external sometimes. Don't care. So, just like if I were a manager at a workplace, if a job needs to get done, it does not matter that you have X, Y, and Z problem. The job needs to get done, whether by you or somebody else. If your anxiety will not let you do it, then we have to find a person who can do it, and now we have to use resources to make that happen. It sounds cruel, but it is a pragmatic way of operating. Likewise, I do not care if somebody's doomerism stems from anxiety, if it stems from depression, or if it stems from them looking out in the world and thinking they've got a unique perspective on it that just happens to involve death. I do not care where it stems from. I believe it is equally useless in every single sense, and it is better for us to operate in a way that tries to push for a better world, irrespective of where it came from. I do not care where the doomerism came from. I can't care. That's my take on that. Somebody may feel like that's cruel or bad or awful. Again, I don't care. I can't care. I would rather try to work on making the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. I can't be fucked to deal with somebody going, there's no hope. I don't care if you think there's no hope. I do. That's what matters to me. Jackney says, operating in such a way as dealing with the underlying depression causing doomerism and uplifting those people, it depends. It depends. So my job, primarily, would be as an entertainer, and maybe there is an aspect of that that is trying to uplift those people who have the doomerism. I can tell them, hey, we can do things. You can do things to try to work on your depression. You can go to therapy. You can take medication. You can try to change the environment around you in such a way that makes things better for you, that you're able to operate in a better, more healthy way. But it is not my job to fix you. It has never been my job to fix the mental health problems of other people. But when those mental health problems manifest in such a way that is incongruent with trying to make the world a better place, I have to address that. I do not and cannot care about the source of it if I am busy dealing with the manifestation. That's what I see on my end. The source is their responsibility. GT Warden says giving up isn't very shonen protagonist. So basically everything can get will better. Everything can and will get better eventually. You're not the exception. Basically. Everything has the ability to improve. Your situation is not somehow so unique it cannot be improved. Sometimes it may take the intervention of somebody else. Sometimes it won't. It depends. For instance, in Arachne's situation, she was homeless and came to me with the inability to deal with it anymore. And we had helped her on stream damn near 4 years ago, and it wasn't enough then because my audience was smaller. Now she is in New Zealand living with her partner and happier than ever. It took intervention on the part of me and my audience, but it happened. Had they decided that, oh, everything is horrible and nothing will ever fix itself, and so I should just fall into despair, as opposed to reaching out for help, that might be a different story. But they reached out. We did everything we could in our power as a community, and I did everything in my power as a creator. I went down, I picked her up, I housed her for 4 months. She is now in New Zealand and happy. I need to figure out what's going on with Growly. Sharkfox Panda, thank you for redeeming your points for an L-Wall. I say I need to figure out what's going on with Growly. After this topic, we will. After this topic, we will. I find doomerism to be useless. It is a useless perspective to have, and people who have that perspective are largely useless to any cause they want to support. Smiling GM, thank you for redeeming your points for an... you fucking degen. Daughter says, my life isn't a shonen, it's one of those fucked up parodies of magical girl tropes. Yeah, and you know what happened in the end of that? I've seen... not Little Witch Academia, why am I thinking of that? I've seen Madoka Magica, and things got better. To a degree. Continuing on here, it says Biden's sagging margins against Trump are one thing, but there are two other trend lines under the hood of these polls that spell trouble for the incumbent. First, his approval rating, already historically low for a president at this point in his term, has been ticking down. Biden's approval rating dipped down to 38% in 538's average earlier this month, the lowest since July 2022. Similarly, when Biden hit 40% in Real Clear Politics average this month, it was his lowest rating since August of 2022. That's awful. Are these the 13 keys? No. Talking about the religious fundamentalist movement? Have you seen the Madoka Magica Rebellion movie? Yes, I have. I have. Most of the polls show Trump with a majority of the vote and don't include undecided voters. A questionable methodological decision this far out from Election Day, especially in a hypothetical race between two candidates so disliked by the electorate. But even polls that do report undecided voters show Trump ticking up, like the Fox News survey, which had Trump with a slight lead over Biden. Said Biden needs to shut up about the economy. Does he though? Does he? Like, there is a problem that's going on right now in America, and that is that we're dealing with a lot of not just like record high inflation, not that, because I know that inflation has actually not been as bad in general as it had been before, but we are dealing with specific things that people need, like groceries jumping up in price insanely like an insane amount. Says Biden needs to shut the fuck up and drop out. Why? What happens then? I'm going to be honest, main star gamer girl. What happens then? What, in your mind, what happens when Biden drops out as the incumbent? As the incumbent in the 2024 election, who has the biggest advantage, and Democrats don't really have anybody of note coming up in that exact same area, what happens if Biden drops out? I can tell you exactly what happens if Biden drops out. So we get a more charismatic Dem who... No, we won't. Not this close to Election Day. It is the end of 2023. Elections are next year. They're 11 months away at this point, right? No. Campaigns are started years before the actual election happens. Biden dropping out of the election right now just means Trump wins. That's what it means. 110%. I hate to say it, but if anybody thinks that is not what happens here, the Democrats have an incumbent. The incumbent always has an advantage in politics. The goal is to make the incumbent as votable, as vote-worthy as possible. Said him staying in means Trump wins? How? What? How does... I need you to word that in a way that sounds not like that. I don't understand. How do you come to the conclusion that Biden winning makes Trump win? What? How? How do you get there? Anyway, we'll go back to the article, but I don't know how you get to that conclusion, unless that was a mistype, but that swing states are moving with the rest of the country away from Biden, which, of course, the bad news for Biden isn't confined to the national polls, and that's despite a 3-month-long advertising campaign meant to boost the president's numbers. Let's see here. So the Dems have no backup in place. The Republican ticket is significantly worse without Trump. Yep. Like, what the Democrats need to be doing right now is they need to be doing everything in their power to make Biden more votable. Thank you very much for the hydrate. They need to be doing everything in their power to make it more reasonable to vote for Biden. Like, that's what you do. You have a person who you can market them better. It said you need an economic depression to create deflation, so January 6th was practice. Biden staying in the running, fully heartedly think Trump beats Biden in the upcoming election. So, here's the thing, though. We are pretending right now. You are pretending that the magical, non-named Democratic person you can bring up in the race, you are pretending that that person is the perfect person for the job and will perform infinitely better. If you are pretending that a magical, imaginary Democrat will simply just perform better than Biden, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it is a belief based on zero evidence. And for anybody who's been around my channel long enough, you know how I feel about those kind of beliefs. And said we need to start Operation Make Biden a Commie. No, that won't work either. So, here's the thing. You can't just make Biden a leftist. That's not going to work because God, I hate to tell this to everybody here. I'm going to be the socialist YouTuber that tells you that, by and large, communism is not popular in America. God, I hate to tell you guys that, but leftism, in its most pure forms, are not popular in America. And this is not just on the right. Liberals also do not like things like communism. We can wax lyrical about how they are ideal states of being, and we can wax lyrical about how Star Trek did it right. We can do that all we want, but we have to live in reality. And in reality, America's left is liberalism. That's what it is. Which means that if you want more progressive policies to push through, you're going to have to do them liberal flavored. You're going to have to. There is no way around it. In a few generations, maybe that will change, but we don't live in that generation right now. We simply don't. Now, the fact that the word communism is not the poison that it was during the Red Scare is progress. That's definitely progress of a kind. But the fact of the matter is, they are not popular ideologies amongst the American liberals. They are not. So trying to run with a widely unpopular idea that cannot be coded in American candy coaty flavoring does not work. And it will not work. I don't want that to be the case. I would like the workers to own the means of production. I would like there to be less influence from capital in things like lobbying. I would like there to be more unions. And hell, I would like to see, honest to God, guilds start getting formed as opposed to megacorps. But that is not the reality we live in right now. We can push for it, but we cannot die on it. So we just gotta feed him senzu beans? Jesus Christ. I think a lot of people also run into the problem of being very terminally online, where they watch a handful of content creators who have really extremist views, and then they, like, not extremist in the, like, they crave violence, but, like, extreme in the, they are further away than what the Overton window would allow, and then they get desensitized to that type of information, and as a result, they think that that type of information is digestible to the American populace at large. Whether or not those ideas are correct is a separate conversation from whether or not they are within the Overton window of American politics. If the ideas are not within the Overton window of American politics, they are not something to be brought into an election cycle. It is political suicide. Hate to say it. So third-party candidates are still having uncertain impact. One of the most striking things about the daunting poll numbers for Biden is that they come in head-to-head matchups with Trump and do not include the third-party candidates who could draw even more votes from the president. Many pollsters don't yet include matchups with independent candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West or Green Party candidate Jill Stein. That's what they're putting forward? Okay. So there's little evidence right now to measure their impact. Trump's lead over Biden in Real Clear Politics average is smaller when Kennedy is added, but slightly larger when West and Stein are also included. Color me shocked. Third-party votes siphoning away votes in the United States. Color me shocked. It's clear that Biden's deficit is not a result of third-party candidates running or those potentially looming, like retiring Senator Joe Manchin, finally, and they could make it harder for Biden to recover, especially if the independent candidates gobble up significant shares of support among groups like young voters. Yep. So let's go ahead and do a brief thing. Let's do a brief run over everything that's going on right now. Biden's not doing well in the polls, and it's not because Trump is obscenely more popular. It's because the political environment we're in right now is not one that favors more of the same. We drastically wanted change when Trump was in office because we drastically wanted not fascism when we had a fascist in office. We haven't had a fascist in office forever, for 4 years, so now that particular brand of burn is not there. We haven't had a fascist. We've had a United States president, so we've had an imperialist, which is a different flavor of authoritarian, but not quite that. Without the political environment, without the political zeitgeist that was pushing hard for voters who otherwise would not have been energized to be energized, many of those voters are not turning out, which means Biden is not seen as as somebody who's going to win as easily as he did last time. He won in a landslide last time because everybody wanted fascism out. We didn't care who we got in. Now that we've had Biden, the Democrats, a lot of them don't want Biden in anymore, and the Republicans definitely don't because they want a Republican in. When you have those voters who are not energized for the person who is in office as the incumbent, when you have those voters who desperately want something different, depending on who they are, they're either going to swing right on their vote just to get something differently flavored, or they are going to go third party because they look at Biden and they go, oh, this person is supporting a genocide in Gaza, and that's bad, and I don't like that. And then they will die on that issue and ignore all of the other things Biden has done in his presidency, and now we will be here. The result is the same either way. Biden does not get votes because the votes get siphoned out by his own party's inability to make him marketable. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert into video tagline here. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the end of the video. That means the fan art section is here instead of at the beginnings. I know there's people who've been here for 6 years that are probably still weirded out by that, and it is kind of weird for me too. But anywho, let's go ahead and talk about today's fan art. We have one from Anubian. It said, low effort slime Suris. Oh, whoa. I guess you got that one for free because board art block / signature test. Fair enough. The next one we have here is from High Priestess Scarlet. This is still a work in progress, but I wanted to submit it anyway. I plan to finish it later, but I have too much to focus on at the moment and wanted to post this anyway. I was inspired to work on this after you did a video a while ago about Metroid. So here is Slime Ridley Suris carrying Slime Suris in a jar. I'll upload the finished version when I get a chance. This is cool. Also, it's a huge thing that I was not able to load instantly. It loaded like dial-up, because my computer was like, hey, that image, too big. The last one we have here is from Axo that has cream. Said, the toxic hype train chugging down the tracks of Degeneration Station. I feel like this might be a reference, but that's a... I witnessed that. That was a thing I witnessed. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and move into the credits. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability that Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.